Hello, and thanks for joining me for this BCAN special presentation, Remembering Dr. King. I'm your host, Bridget Burnett, and for the next half hour, we will take a look at the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and how his dream is still being realized today.
No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Dr. King was a man that traveled all over the United States campaigning for civil rights for all Americans. But did you know that Dr. King has a couple of local ties right here in the Glass City? I had a chance to sit down and talk to Priscilla Lamb-Schweer, who is local news reporter Lisa Guyton's mother, about a unique story that involves their family and Dr. King.
So we had just moved from Boston to Cleveland, and that was the summer of 67. And that was a very landmark, summer.
I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be, and you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be.
And so my first meeting with Martin Luther King was at breakfast. My father had met Dr. King during his service on Wilberforce University board. So he'd gotten to know Dr. King, and they were organizing a march in Cleveland. That was the summer of the riots in Detroit and Cleveland, the Huff area over there. We met him at breakfast before the march started, and I went home and I picked up Lisa, who was just maybe a month old, put her in a backpack, and we marched through the streets of Cleveland. And that was the summer that I think people became very conscious of the movement. I think before it hadn't touched us as much out here in the Midwest, but when Detroit and Cleveland erupted, we realized that this movement was in the North. It wasn't just a Southern problem.
We must all learn to live together as brothers, or we will all perish together as fools.
I think I was very proud to be part of it. I don't think I was scared. I just think I was very proud that we were doing this and that I had my baby on the back and I wanted her to be part of it. That as soon as that date was set that he would be speaking at Scott High School, my father offered to give a reception at our house in Maumee, and he wanted to invite the Black Ministers Alliance in Toledo and Northwest Ohio and other city leaders as guests to meet Dr. King before he gave the speech.
I still have faith in the future, and I believe we're going to solve this problem in America.
And proud to be part of this experience. So that's what I think when I look at the picture. And who would know that 6 months later, the tragedy would occur. Priscilla Lamb-Schweer.
On that same visit, Dr. King also spoke at Toledo's own Jessup W. Scott High School. On that day, his words pierced minds of those who attended and echoed through the halls.
Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children.
I sat down and talked to Scott's current principal, Dr. Carnell Smith, about his dreams.
Truthfully, my dream was being a professional athlete, and very young, I realized that I had some skills and talents, and I found out what a scholarship was at a very young age, and people in the community used to encourage me to continue to work on that craft and to stay out of trouble and to work hard and to get good grades. And so I look at myself as a servant leader. And since I've been back into education, I started in education as a daily substitute. Then I became a long-term sub, and then I was a building sub. And as I looked around and I spoke to teachers, I spoke to parents and community members, I thought that I could do more as I moved up if I get into a leadership position to open up avenues to assist people and to serve our youth to ensure that they have a quality education so it can be the foundation of their lives so they can experience success in their lives.
Even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. Yes. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
It's an honor and a privilege just to be here at a place where someone of his magnitude was once here speaking at Scott High School to the community, and I think it was over 3,500 people in that field house at that time, if I recall right, as reading, that came here to attend that. And so it's a great privilege for me. And not just Dr. King, but all the many great alumnus who have come through here at Scott High School. And then they've paved the way for me to be here. It's not a coincidence that President Obama was here during his election, going through his election period. It's not a coincidence that the great Muhammad Ali attended here. It's not a coincidence that the OJs came here, or the SOS Band, or Run DMC, or New Edition. Those are not coincidences. This is because of Scott High School and the history and what it represents. Often I'm asking our kids to have intellect over their instincts. So I want them to think more before they react. And so that's important to have, to implement Dr. King's dream and to convey that to them, a sense of love, a sense of pride, a sense of family, a sense of community, a sense of unity, that we help each other, that we respect each other. I don't think Dr. King would appreciate the violence that's going on in the African American community right now. And so this is something that we talk about with our kids and we want to combat. And so those are some of the things we would like to address with our kids, and I think Dr. King would address that as well. That's something that we have to convey with our kids continuously so they can carry that spirit within them as well.
Unfortunately, Dr. King would be assassinated a short time after his visit to Toledo. When we come back, we'll take a look at how Dr. King's dream still lives on through the opera. Remembering Dr. King will return.
God Almighty, we are free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Welcome back to Remembering Dr. King. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm your host, Bridget Burnett. Now that we know about Dr. King's unique local ties to Toledo, let's take a look at a new opera that's helping to spread Dr. King's dream one city at a time. Simply titled I Dream, a preacher from Atlanta, this new rhythm and blues opera fuses classical, jazz, gospel, and popular musical styles into a moving theatrical work. The 2018 premiere coincides with the 50th commemoration of the death of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The focus of I Dream is the 36 hours leading up to Dr. King's assassination and a sequence of dream, reminiscence, and premonition before the fateful moment on the balcony of Memphis's Lorraine Motel. More than a historical retrospective, I Dream is an exploration of the humanity of a man, the plight of the poor, and those who are persecuted. I Dream envisions a renewing of Dr. King's message at a time of deep divisions in our culture. It is a piece about yesterday, but is very much for today.
A final nail into their coffin. He could bring us all we've wanted, all we've worked for, what we deserve.
We are talking about I Dream. So what is the dream behind I Dream?
To tell the story of Martin Luther King Jr. And the civil rights movement in 2 hours. that is the dream. If that's not overly ambitious, to cover 30 years of history, to convey accurate history, with some poetic license and artistic interpretation, but also to convey a sense of what it felt like to those who weren't there, who didn't experience it in 2018. Focusing the story and adapting the story and then writing music and lyrics to go with it has been an ongoing process that's still ongoing somewhat, but it's fixed now. And it's about a 2-hour piece in 2 acts, and it focuses on the last 36 hours in Dr. King's life, beginning on the morning of April 3rd, 1968.
If it only wasn't real.
As he wakes up on the 3rd of April, 68, he'd already been having a series of dreams that had been somewhat indicative of what his future would be, but as dreams are, without a clear sense of the when and the how and the where and the why and the who. And those are things that he gains knowledge of throughout the piece.
Did you imagine it would take you to meet Shaka Khan, the Obama daughters?
No, of course not.
Toledo, Ohio?
Of course not. No, you just write these things. And as a writer, I try to write it with a sense that if I just write the best thing possible, and it's never put on in my life, but maybe after my life, or even not then, or in 100 years someone discovers it, that was still the right thing to do. But then to write it and to see it performed is an astonishing thing.
Douglas Tappan, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Here with Christy Swan. And so we are talking about your role as grandma. So your beautiful face right now, it's going to look totally different.
Yeah,
in April,
I'm
huh?
thinking they're going to do the Mrs. Doubtfire treatment on my face. I'm going to be probably prosthetics, gray wig, and I'm looking forward to it. You know, probably flat shoes. I'm really happy doing that. That's the life of a mezzo soprano. We're the witch. We're the person that knows all the secrets, the person that lays out the curses. So we always have to do something big and crazy. My role, Grandma, the music that Mr. Tappan writes is something that I grew up with, I'm more familiar with. I grew up in Southern Baptist Church. And so the kind of music that Grandma sings is very reminiscent of my grandma, who sang to me all the time. So my mom and my grandma are the reasons why I sing. I want them to feel the way I felt when my grandma was singing to me. I mean, no one hugs better than my grandma, and the only thing better than a hug from my grandma is hearing her sing. And I just hope that they get the message. This is a bright spot in the opera. She's optimistic, or she's trying to give optimism to the people around her. It might be a hard work week, but Sunday's our day, and you have that opportunity to rest and look at the beautiful things. She observes what's happening in nature, and she wants everybody else to do that, at least for that one day. And I love having that opportunity. But again, that's what my grandmother, if you meet her today, all she does is smile. She doesn't fret, and she doesn't have a wrinkle because of it, you know. So I can't wait to sing this for a full audience in the Opera House and just really kind of let go.
I Dream will premiere right here in the Glass City. Suzanne Rorick, the executive director of the Toledo Opera, was influential in making sure Toledo was one of its first stops. Suzanne Rorick of Toledo Opera, you were instrumental in bringing I Dream here. Why that production here in Toledo, Ohio?
Our principal artistic advisor, Jim Mina, had been approached about creating a rhythm and blues opera that Douglas Tappan had written. And he's in Charlotte, Opera Carolina. That's where Jim Mina is. And so 2 years ago, I said yes. Lo and behold, the Valentine Theater was available the same weekend as the actual assassination anniversary, 50th year. And so we were selected to be the place that it would premiere, which I'm just thrilled about, because that makes it especially wonderful for Toledo to have this premiere here at this time that the whole country will be also paying a tribute to the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. You know, opera tells a story. This is the story. This is an American story. The story of a man who his time was right to lead. It was a very short period of life, but it's the struggle he had to make the decisions on how to lead. And I think it's just a great story. And I think this gives a new time to discuss it, and musically, it gives a really high quality piece that represents this man so brilliantly. It's always been meant to share experiences with people. And so if we can use this opera to share this common experience, first the actual time 50 years ago, and now our community's shared experience around this new opera, I'm pleased to do it.
God Almighty, we are free. Thank God Almighty, we are free.
I think that the Martin Luther King Jr. of today is anybody who stands up for what they believe in and doesn't keep silent. I'm inspired by the people who spend their money, time, efforts in order to better the community.
When I think of this as the 50th anniversary of his death, I still think of how young he was and what an impact he made at an early age. He was 39 when he died, but he had already been a public figure for 15 years. He led the Montgomery bus boycott when he was 25 years old. He gave the I Have a Dream speech when he was 34. So of all the many things we can say about Martin Luther King Jr., and he's right to say anyone can be great because anyone can serve, that service doesn't have to begin after you serve some sort of an apprenticeship. You don't have to start serving until you're 30 or 40 or 50 years old. This is someone who, among his many other incredible contributions to our world, was making a difference at a really young age.
What we can do to ensure that we move forward in the dream of peace, love, and unity is to begin to create succession with our children by teaching them what the dream is, what it means to many of us, how we must move forward, and making sure that each of them understand the progression of our great country, our state, and our city.
When I was in college and then got married and had children, I realized the importance of the civil rights movement and how important it was for us to embrace diversity, learn from each other, and work hard to make our community better. I want this community to be a vibrant community for me and for my children and for generations to come.
For me, right now, Dr. King symbolizes that strides can be made toward racial equality through nonviolent measures.
Dr. King is a pastor, a preacher, a prophet, an author, someone I love to read and be inspired by. But I have to admit that most of all, Dr. King is someone that I want to bring alive for my children. My wife and I have 3 daughters, 7, 5, and 2. And I will not let them grow up in a world where they don't understand the work of Dr. King and all that he stood for.
Even though he was assassinated 50 years ago, his spirit lives on through all of us. From the oldest Americans down to the youngest ones, these next 2 individuals will forever be impacted by Dr. King's dream.
Well, they actually didn't tell me. They actually, like, I was supposed to go to bed, and my dad called me down, and then he just told me to sing something, and then I did a song, but I got a couple words wrong. It's a day that we forget, but we don't have. Good. The next day, I went to my papa's, and then they picked me up, and then they told me that I was in the play.
And even now, while we're here, I know we can be at the piano, but like almost like sing it all the way out to the like say that's the back of the audience over there.
He was a good man. He was a pastor. He was a junior like me.
Good, man. That's good, good.
I
Playing this character is something special because even though our country has moved forward in great strides, there's still so much of what Dr. King trumpeted that has not been accomplished yet.
And that wave will wash all the tears and pain of this bitter.
Thank God for the internet because there's so much information available to us about our history. And I did a great deal of research, but just before I step into the role and get on the stage, I love to have 15 minutes of complete silence. And I just sit and let my body relax into all of the history and the study that I've done prior to that moment.
Harmony and rhythm, singing freedom's glorious theme. I dream.
I think, especially in our country right now, this is an incredible time for us to echo those sentiments again and hear his words again and remind ourselves of love and peace and goodness and unity and all of those wonderful, wonderful attributes that he stood for. And so playing this role, I'm just very excited to get to be the one that stands on a stage and declares those words again.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a man with a vision, purpose, and determination to make a change in the very fabric of the United States. His brave stand inspired people to act, but ultimately led to major voting and civil rights legislation. What a life and legacy to leave. Dr. King has surely set the bar high, but it is up to us to keep his dream alive. I want to thank you for joining me today for this special presentation of Remembering Dr. King. It has been nothing short of an honor to reflect on his life and how it has impacted my own. For BCAN, I'm Bridget Burnett. See you next time.